Again, to reset the room, welcome everyone to our NationSwell discussion on an equitable digital transformation, the future of learning and earning. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat once you join. Let us know who you are, where you're coming from, where you work, and if you'd like, your first memory of using a computer. We've got some folks from DC, got Florida, New York City. What else do we got here? Texas, okay. Nationwide. We've got Canada. This is great. Okay, so welcome everyone to our NationSwell discussion on an equitable digital transformation, the future of learning and earning. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat as you join. Let us know who you are, where you are, and if you'd like, your first memory of using a computer. Over the last 30 years in education, a lot has changed, right? And as we can see that in the chat. But also in the last 3 years, a lot has changed as a result of the pandemic. So for better or for worse, the digital transformation has arrived. And with this in mind, how do we ensure that that transformation is inclusive and not exclusive of certain subsets of the population? Can we use technology to tighten those gaps as opposed to exacerbate them when we think about education and employment? I think we can, but don't just take my word for it. We have some wonderful guests today. We've got some experts. So today with us, we have Hector Mujica, Head of Economic Opportunity at Google.org. We have Dr. Suzanne Lacey, the Superintendent of Talladega County Schools. We also have Kristina Harrison-Francis, Executive Director at Jobs for the Future Labs. And last but not least, moderating today is going to be the incomparable Jean-Claude Brizard, President and CEO of Digital Promise. This conversation is being done in collaboration with Digital Promise, and I couldn't think of a better organization or a better moderator for today's discussion. So audience members, if you have questions today as you listen, fear not, you can put them in the chat or you can put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to get to those later in the discussion and ask them to the panelists. But for now, I'm going to disappear and I'm going to turn things over to Jean-Claude. So Jean-Claude, you want to take things from here?
Absolutely. Ray, you're very kind. Thank you very much. I have an amazing panel, everyone. But let me start with this. I know that artificial intelligence is on everybody's mind today. It seems to be dominating our conversations as of late. The fact is that AI has been in education for years, if not decades. And we expect that education technology across the world would incorporate some form of artificial intelligence by 2027. In an article that I authored last October in the Eckinger report, I argued that we need a digital transformation in education. Exactly what that means, we're going to come back and have a discussion around that. But just a quick tidbit around that. We believe that an integrated, coherent approach to tech that centers teaching and learning in the human being, in the human, will help improve student outcomes by enhancing teachers' ability to meet individual students' needs. They also will allow learners to master new skills at their own pace, in their own way. We think these tools are key to bolstering educator capacity in addressing the inequities that has been exacerbated during the pandemic, as well as revolutionizing transition spaces between education and work. I really am looking forward to this discussion. But before we jump into our conversation, perhaps give each of our panelists, again, powerful in their own right, about a minute perhaps to introduce themselves. So I'm looking at my Brady Bunch page here. So Dr. Lacey, I think you're first on my Brady Bunch. Please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Lacey. I currently serve as superintendent in Talladega County, Alabama. I've been in this role for 15 years and almost 40 years as an educator. So glad to be with you this afternoon.
Kristina?
Hello, I'm Kristina Francis, Executive Director of JFF Labs, where we focus on transforming workforce and education. I see some folks in the chat are in Northern Virginia. I live in Northern Virginia. I think my role right now allows me to integrate the now and the future of learning. I also bring my own experience going to college for one thing, psychology and English, and then graduating and working for a company that upskilled me at the top of the .com. And so I spent 20 years actually building software, enterprise software for the Department of Defense. And this change in career and opportunity had a direct impact on my economic advancement. I'm also a mom of a 15-year-old girl and a 14-year-old young man, and I'm seeing the world through their eyes. And I'll probably talk a little bit about that later, but thank you for having me.
That's awesome. And Hector?
Hey everyone, good afternoon. My name is Hector Mujica. I lead the Economic Opportunity team at Google.org, Google's philanthropic arm across the Americas. And when I heard about this conversation, what really brought me to the table is really anchored on the belief that skills are equitably distributed, but opportunity is not. And therefore, I really grieve the fact that there's a tremendous loss of potential happening today in our communities, which is why our goal at Google.org is really to create a digital economy that truly works for everyone, that is equitable, and that's open, that has a lot of meaningful pathways for communities that come from many non-traditional backgrounds. So happy to be diving in with you all.
Hector, thank you. I mean, as you can hear, folks, we've got really sort of 360-degree set of expertise here in terms of really understanding what we're talking about in terms of technology really enhancing the work that we need to do to put kids on the path toward economic security or economic mobility. So let me start with this, first of all. We use the expression digital transformation. What does that mean exactly in your book? And Suzanne, I'll start with you.
Well, in Talladega County Schools, we have been in a digital transformation for 15 years. So we are well into the journey, and I have seen that journey start as a very basic type of journey to a very advanced type of journey. Our school district was very traditional in nature 15 years ago, and we knew from our research and from our visits across the country to schools that were utilizing technology to support student learning that the time was right to change and adopt a model that would really put our children on an equal playing field. We are a high poverty rural county with 17 schools. There's almost a 60-mile radius between north and south of our school district. So it was top priority to ensure that this framework was not just for a select few schools, but for our entire district. So I could talk days and days about that, but what I can tell you is that for 15 years, that transformation has occurred and the change has been sustained because we have truly seen the value of technology to support student learning. That is evident in test scores, which are so often the measure of a school district. But far greater than that, we have seen the empowerment that has been given to both our students and our teachers to own their own learning. And with this transformational journey, now learning is 24/7. Every student has a device in our district. We are one of the first states in Alabama to be able to accomplish that mission of every student having a device to support their learning. So it has been a wonderful opportunity to really prepare students as they are approaching graduation to be better prepared for college or better prepared for the workforce. We are very much tied in with workforce development in our region and our state. And to have the technology and to produce students that are technologically competent has been a game changer for our district. And not only technology just with a device and to support learning, but we've uncovered so many other benefits like school culture, the power of research, the power of communication among our students, the power to collaborate, to work in teams, which we all know are very important skills for workforce development.
Suzanne, that is so well said. And there's a powerful video, frankly, of your work in Talladega. I think everyone should see. So I'll find the link on YouTube and put it in the chat. But this idea of centering teaching and learning. So Richard Elmore, the late Dr. Richard Elmore at Harvard, often talked about the most important relationship in education is between teachers, students, and content. And of course, the pandemic taught us, as Kristina, you actually talked about, is families, teachers, students and content. The question of how technology really augments the intelligence of the relationship is how we leverage technology in this work. So that is frankly foundational in the work you've done in Talladega. So thank you so much. So Kristina, I mean, you lead an amazing lab at one of my favorite places, Job for the Future. Talk a little bit about how you define digital transformation.
Absolutely. And thank you for the shout out for JFF. I love it too. I love the work that we're doing. It's so timely. I think when we look at, and historically JFF has been, workforce and education, but I think as we are learning, and you just mentioned kind of content and context matters. So it's not just learning, education and learning, it's also work, it's life, it's the integration of those tools, technologies, and opportunities. I think right now we see a wide spectrum of users of digital tools and digital transformation. We have a multi-generational workforce right now, all who have varying levels of sophistication and opportunity with the tools that we and platforms that you see out there. You mentioned earlier AI, and we're seeing the emergence of ChatGPT. I think part of digital transformation, one, is not only the tools and technologies that we use, how we use them, where we actually use them, making sure that people are educated and understanding when to use them, how it actually benefits them and advances them, whether that's again in work, education, or learning. And I think the integration of life and work and education. I will share a short story. I think a couple of people may have heard this, but my 14-year-old during the pandemic was in school, Zoom online. And during his breaks and outside, he was on TikTok. Don't judge me as a parent yet. 9 p.m. every night, he was watching, now that I define her as a teacher. And he was also following up based on what she said on YouTube. And so in addition to his schoolwork, he was actually learning about aviation. We didn't realize that until about 8 or 9 months in, when he started talking to us about the almost Captain Morgan on TikTok and what he was learning, and his love for aviation started to grow. I think he was 11 and a half at the time. He is now actually flying planes. And I use that story to share that I think digital transformation or digital tools have the opportunity to not only advance in how we work and learn, but it also has the opportunity to introduce people to new tools and technologies, new careers, new opportunities, to excite them in what they're doing, to give them agency, and then thus advancing them. And so I use that as a practical story, just because I think when we talk about digital transformation and digital tools, that's an example of how it can change one's life, one's context and content and energy around the future.
That's such a great point. First of all, I'm a commercial pilot, so I love the fact that you got someone's actually flying airplanes. But when you think about, frankly, what young people are learning outside the four walls of the school, often that is not captured, right? And the question of how we think about it, I think is really critical and important. We've got millions of kids learning math on YouTube, but it's not within the construct of a school. So how do we think about this kind of ubiquitous learning, what technology can bring to bear, I think is an important point. So thank you. So Hector, Google, right? You guys know everything. So what's the answer?
I don't know about everything, but we know a few things. Happy to build. I'll build on both answers from Kristina and Suzanne. I think the way that I tend to approach it at Google.org, which is of course Google's philanthropic arm, and we tend to tackle this question both from the K-12 lens and also disproportionately through the workforce lens. And to add a little bit of urgency, a sense of urgency to what Kristina was just mentioning, we know that there's an increased need in the market for digital skills. This is not just true for tech companies or for tech roles. This is true for nearly every single job. Every single job is going to at some point require a level of digital proficiency. We know right now a lot of studies are pointing to about 2/3 of jobs require at least a medium level of digital skills proficiency to participate in it. We also acknowledge, Jean-Claude, you kicked off with invoking the infamous term that's plaguing all of our ears right now, which is artificial intelligence. we know that skills disruption is happening faster and faster, and kind of that flywheel is evolving quicker and quicker with new advances, new skills appearing, new job requirements popping up in the market at a much rapid pace now than ever before. We also know that, you know, different thought leaders out there, the World Bank, the World Economic Forum, think that up to 50% of workers are going to need to add new skills to be able to keep up with the requirements of in-demand careers. So that to me places a great sense of urgency and underlines the importance of what we're talking about when we're talking about digital transformation, that if we want to make sure that people can remain competitive, that people can remain involved and included in the digital economy, it is imperative that we're centering this theme of digital skills and digital skill sets that are necessary for the workforce, while of course not doing without what Dr. Lacey mentioned around human skills, right? Creativity, teamwork, innovation. These things will continue. That's what makes us human, right? That's what makes us competitive. That's what makes us irreplaceable by machines and technology and tools. So, you know, as we at Google.org have been thinking about how do we make sure that the future of work is accessible to everyone, we've been working hard to create new pathways, which involve both best-in-class digital skills curriculum to the Google career certificates, but also how do we think about wraparound supports? How do we think about barriers? How do we think about removing barriers for communities that have the multiple barriers to opportunity and inclusion in the digital economy? And that really does center a majority of the work that we do as we think and advance the narrative around digital transformation.
Hector, go ahead, please, go ahead.
I was going to add, Jean-Claude, one of the pivotal moments in our school system, if I may say, was when our principals and at the time our digital learning specialists visited the Google headquarters in California for a week of intensive training to see how you guys worked. And I promise that was the most valuable and rich form of professional development for our administrators and our digital learning specialists, and we would love to come again. But that was a moment in time that truly changed the trajectory of what was happening in our schools, our work environment, and how we were learning and supporting our teachers. So I think it was just a moment that I must say thank you for that, and kudos to all that we learned back in 2017 when our people came to Google headquarters.
Let me double down on that excitement as well too, Suzanne. When we think about the dynamism that needs to exist between what we do in K-16, not just K-12, and frankly, the Google, the like of Google's hiring these individuals to make sure that what we're doing remains relevant, I think it's an important piece. I think, Hector, what you bring out two different pieces here. One is how technology can really enhance what we do in the everyday curricula, right? But there's also the kind of skills that young people need to have to survive, not even in the future of work, I'm sure Kristina would agree with this, but in the present, what is happening now, particularly in the workforce, which is critical, which brings up all kinds of questions and conversations around what we teach, how we teach, et cetera, all the way through post-secondary. I'm going to come back to that in a second. But one of the things that we see and worry about is that while technology can be a great equalizer, we've seen from the data and from history, sometimes technology actually creates even more gaps between the haves and the haves not. So how should we think about this digital transformation in a way that ensures equitable access for all people?
I think from a school district's perspective, we're all working off the same framework. This is just not good for schools in, the central part of our district. It's good for everyone. And to be able to unify a district as this has done for us, I think is very powerful learning. And, at the forefront has been our teachers to be able to become our experts in this transformation. That has been the key to sustaining these efforts, because we have created thousands now of teacher leaders who are so excited still to be able to showcase their work and to be able to teach colleagues. And as an educator, the most powerful learning oftentimes with teachers is learning from their colleagues. So I think it's an opportunity, if other school districts are not on this journey yet, that it really has to be systemic in nature. It can't be just one spot, but it has to be driven by a desire for everyone to be a part and outcomes to be for every student. Students with disabilities, I think about how this transformation of integration of technology has enhanced their learning in ways that just, on an everyday basis in the classroom, we would not be able to do, but through the power of programs that are designed to support certain disabilities, that has been, again, a game changer for students with special needs.
And I'll quickly add on to that. I think one thing that we often think about at Google.org when we're deploying programming and initiatives and curriculum, like the career certificates and what have you, is how do we center the communities that are most in the margins, and how do we deploy capital? How do we deploy resourcing? How do we remove the barriers that I was speaking to earlier that we need to remove to make sure that this curriculum reaches the right individuals within the right context and the right framing? And what I've come to realize in my career, and I think this is very central to the philosophy of Google.org, is that a key part of the equation is the acknowledgement that those most proximate to the problem are also most proximate to the solutions, which is why we see it as a critical component of all digital skillings, workforce development, computer science education outreach work we do, to be centering organizations that are not only BIPOC serving, but also BIPOC led, that have staffs that are reflective of the constituents that they're trying to reach. Because ultimately, that is how you have breakthrough in this space. It's not by having people that feel distant, that feel out of touch, that are delivering content that is not culturally relevant. We often talk about the philosophy of if we can't see it, we can't be it. That's been top of mind for me after seeing the Oscars this past weekend, right? Like, it's so critical to have these keystone people that feel approachable, that feel within reach, that we can actually strive to be more proximate to. And to me, that really gets down to the importance of funding and putting resourcing and partnering and elevating organizations like Unidos, or the Hispanic Federation, the Latino community, like National Urban League and the Black community, the African American community, like Asian Americans Advancing Justice in the Asian American community, right? I think it's critical that we continue to deploy resources and that we continue to reach these communities by and with organizations that are reflective of those entities and those groups.
Hector, that's a good point. I'm going to come back to this if we have time as well. My entire team, the entire Digital Promise team, was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, back in November, and engaging Indigenous nations education. And what we heard in pushing the question, how is the community engaging technology or embracing technology? What we heard was, how is technology embracing our community? It goes back to this idea of making sure those who are proximate to the challenge effectively have the solutions, should be part of designing the solutions. So it really resonates. Kristina, thoughts on your end?
Yeah, I was actually going to talk about the co-design and making sure those for whom you want to serve are part of that design and testing of solutions or platforms. But I also want to go back to something you mentioned, Jean-Claude, around just dynamism, right? And you said it in context of young people. But again, multi-generational workforce. And again, I hope my mom won't mind me sharing this, but my mom is the executive president for the Connecticut's AFL-CIO. And when COVID happened, I remember she was trying to convene people and had never used Zoom before. And so we think about the spectrum of digital skills, right? Could be hopping on a Zoom call and or developing tools in AI or the metaverse. And so we've got such a wide spectrum. And there are some people that may have a fear of technology. And so how do we invite them in and provide, particularly those that are later in their career, and give them the tools and experience needed so that they can continue to lead in a dynamic way, whether they're a teacher or a leader in corporations or nonprofits. I think the other thing is when we, just to double down on what Dr. Lacey mentioned around the education systems. And, we see a lot of schools right now that are still struggling due to historic underinvestment, structural inequities. Some school districts don't meet the FCC's minimum requirement for internet connectivity, right? And so, there's the access, the basic access. And then there's the opportunity, I think Hector mentioned, kind of culturally relevant content, and making sure that once you do have access to tools and devices, that you actually have the proper instruction on how and when to use those tools, and making sure that it's relevant to the individuals. And I think, a lot of the work that we do around workforce and employers, we're looking at the emergence of new industries and occupations and skills, and some, job titles are not yet, what the titles will be, because jobs are being created right now. And so we're needing more innovative training models and new providers that are embracing kind of the latest approaches in digital technologies to help people build those skills and confidence in what they're doing. And so, we need to make sure that workforce boards and American Job Centers, Job Corps centers that support our 16 to 24-year-olds are truly outfitted with the right access, instruction, culturally relevant instruction, and support systems around. And then I think there's a policy play in this as well. We look at ways in which the federal government can support. We look at the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, WIOA. There are a couple of other opportunities through the Infrastructure Act that's coming. And so I think, it's an all hands on deck moment across different sectors to really make sure that we're not missing this urgent moment that Hector mentioned. Mostly everyone needs to upskill as we go. And so we just need to make sure we've got the supports in place.
Those are, phenomenal. There's so much packed in what you said, Kristina, so it's hard to follow up on every single one of them. But there's a lot of work that we need to do around this idea of co-design. Suzanne, you live this every single day. When you think about the work that we need to do in K-12, in the classroom with teachers, the work you do, you use the expression systems, right? What you do at the school level, the district level, and how you engage the overall sort of Talladega County community, including the community colleges, right? So talk a little bit about how you see all these different players showing up in that kind of systems approach to supporting young people.
Right. Well, in our school district, we have really been leaders in our particular area to embrace the idea of integrating technology to support student learning. I hear a lot, even 15 years later, that colleagues in other districts are waiting for that moment when they want to integrate technology to support student learning. And, that's a way behind thought, because 15 years ago, we were soon to be behind if we hadn't have started with our integration of technology to support student learning. But I think what we try to connect with all of the parties in our particular area, community college, workforce development, is to really have a model that's going to support a student, regardless of their pathway after high school. And the vast majority of our students in our district go into the workforce in a 2-year college. A smaller percentage go into a 4-year university. So it is so important that we are holding hands with workforce development for, the regional job market needs, not only within our district, but, counties surrounding us. We're involved right now with a workforce develop initiative that is bringing an innovation, learning, and training technology hub to Central Alabama, which will impact numerous counties around us. And part of that work is an education component that will tie what we're doing in K-12 to what's happening at the community college level and what's needed in the workforce. So there are lots of conversations that my team, myself, we have with many different parties to prepare students, for this next level of work. 15 years ago, we were concerned about getting devices, and that was really a financial hardship for our district, who didn't have extra money for that. We had to postpone, maintenance needs in order to buy devices for our students. But we quickly learned that it was just so much more than the device, that the entire culture of our school district changed because of technology. And it brought a power to our students and to our staff that we had never experienced before living in rural Alabama. And, I think that's been the greatest, one of the greatest outcomes, is just to be able to show our students that they can go anywhere in the world through the power of technology. And one of our first activities as an entire school district, all 1,000 employees, we went on a virtual field trip at our institute ceremony with 1,000 people. And that was 15 years ago. And I laugh because that's so basic now to go on a virtual field trip. But 15 years ago, that was a change. That was a change maker, to see how in this big auditorium, we could connect within seconds with New York City at a wonderful, beautiful museum, to showcase how quickly and easily that could be done in a classroom. So I think the learning that we have experienced is just far greater than the tech tools, so to speak. It's been about, truly a mindset. We've read the book by Carol Dweck, The Growth Mindset, to showcase and to motivate our students and staff that, we may not learn all of this just at once. This has been a 15-year journey. We're still learning. We're embarking next year on cybersecurity for our students. Thanks to Digital Promise and our partnership there. So 15 years ago, we're not thinking about incorporating cybersecurity courses in our curriculum, but that's how far we've come from 15 years ago until today. So I think everybody at every level has a part, but the main thing is always to focus on student outcomes and how this will impact students in a way that will help, predict their future, ground their future, and certainly be successful in their future.
That's terrific, Suzanne. And that video again talks about a young man who has some disabilities, but clearly has leveraged technology to actually do amazing things. So Hector, leading on you a little bit, one of the things that we think about, I just came back from a trip overseas with a bunch of leaders, including leaders from the US Department of Education, looking at how research technology or tech products, research and practitioners engage. This idea of looking at technology and pedagogy quickly come together with research as a background. How do we think about maybe incentivizing tech product developers to really think about the end user, to think about efficacy, to think about the research base showing up in what we do and what they do every single day?
Yeah, Jean-Claude, that's a great question, and it kind of brings me back to my previous answer around the importance of ensuring the diversity of the makers of technology, right? And it really brings me back to the acknowledgement that as technology is advancing, as we have emerging technology like artificial intelligence, to really help usher kind of an equity-based digital transformation and kind of be able to lean heavily into research and development of technology that's going to be more equitably and inclusively centered, really that starts with a pipeline question and ultimately the makeup of who is creating that technology. That for me, there's no doubt that we'll continue to see jobs that will shift. That's something that's happened throughout all of history. And many jobs will be complemented by emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, many entire new job categories that we can't even fathom. If you think back, like people 50 years ago would have never thought that we'd be having a panel conversation from the comfort of our homes, reaching people in Canada and throughout the United States. So there's so many job categories that we can't even fathom today that will be created as well. And we at Google see the role of things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and other advanced technologies as something that can supplement people's abilities, something that's additive, not something that's replacing or duplicative. You know, in our own product, we see that with Google Assistant and kind of the smart reply and smart compose in Gmail and what have you. Those are all things that are additive and that's augmentative. And truly, again, I believe, and we collectively at Google.org believe that the best way to make sure that emerging technologies like AI are inclusive and work well for underserved groups, we need to ensure that those communities are not just consumers of advanced technologies, but also producers, and ensure that we're proactively investing into developing meaningful pipelines of technological talent that goes back for both the baseline, the broad-based pyramid of digital skills and broad-based pyramid of jobs that require digital skilling, and also advanced roles in software engineering and whatnot. You know, I'll give a shout out to the folks at CodePath as an organization that has been doing really, really phenomenal work in terms of understanding what the latest research is saying, what the latest demands are saying from employers, and adapting that into the classroom, into the university classrooms, and working with university professors and working with staff to amend the curriculum for software engineering and be able to prepare meaningful pipelines of diverse talent into the more advanced echelons of technical work, right? So to me, there's a lot of potential there, a lot of promise, and a lot of conversations to be had around that topic.
Hector, thank you. And just to add a couple of things, first of all, I couldn't agree more. You know, this meeting I was a part of, we saw this kind of work happening, yes, in Finland, in the UK, in Norway, but in Johannesburg, in Nigeria, in Malaysia. You know, so there's a global sort of effort in really connecting practitioners with their technology and making sure that what we do is efficacious, is based on solid information. So really resonate. Let me add a quick story. And I want to get to the next topic. I'm going to pull you in, Kristina, to this part. I should have you lead the discussion here. I was in Aspen last July with the Aspen Institute, and I was moderating a room called Technology for Good. And we're talking about, again, all this stuff in that tech and technology. And somebody asked a question about what is Web3 exactly? And I know someone here just asked a question on Web3. This 16-year-old jumped up. There was a youth camp attached to the convening, and he spent 10 minutes explaining in full detail what Web3 is. The founder of Care.com offered him a job on the spot. So did I, Promise. I asked him, I said, where'd you learn all this stuff? He goes, not in school. During the pandemic, he got a real interest in Web3. He basically taught himself that, which tells me there's so much that young people are learning, which I think we just discussed, we're not capturing. So when we think about credentialing, when we think about this idea of the employment learner record, Kristina, I mean, what are you seeing at GFF around sort of innovations in capturing all learning and connecting young people from K-12 to post-secondary to work? What are you seeing? What are you guys working on?
Yeah, so much in that area. You know, and I mentioned my son earlier, thinking through his lens, there's nothing that captures the time that he's spending right now on YouTube, on TikTok, just learning on his own. So, you know, we happen to believe that there's a radical future world that centers around one's own knowledge. And over the course of a lifetime, you know, individuals pursue, yes, career paths, but alongside that, other interest areas where, you know, they're learning, whether they're taking an experience or a trip, taking classes that are outside of the normal career development class or even their major in college. And we need to find a way to accumulate and validate those records and kind of create a narrative or a story, if you will, around what a person can do. I love the fact, JC, that you made an offer to someone on the spot. We need more of that, right? We need more people to be able to say, here's what I know, here's what I can do. And that actually be your, not audition, but your interview, right? I'd love to see more of that. So, you know, one of the things that we're doing is around learner and education records. We've actually had a couple of what we're calling plug fests to bring in innovators that are testing out this new technology using blockchain, AI, and other technologies, and showing the interoperability of those and the efficacy of actually being able to demonstrate a learner and education record. I think that there's an opportunity where a person is able to actually, instead of depending on just a digital credential, to really look at sharing data, whether it's in an application tracking system, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether we're reading data in some other way of something that we don't know now. Hector, I love how you said, like, there are jobs that don't exist. And I was reflecting on two jobs. Well, the job I had, .NET developer, didn't exist when I was in college. And I remember when technical ethicist, that job came out, and I was like, what is a technical ethicist, right? And so I think we're at a time now where skills, the combination of skills, will equate to a job that we actually don't have a title for right now. We need a way to stack credentials, to stack skills, and to, again, narrate the opportunity for someone to be available for a job of the future. Some of the tools that may not exist right now allows us to build that data and to drive a compelling story. It also allows us to use human language and natural language matching so that people can look at, here's what's needed on an employer or a job side, and here is what a person has done, thinks they can do, and been validated that they can do, and that actually matches up to opportunity. I think we're now starting to see the beginning stages of that. Obviously, we need to get it more included in everyday work and life. But we're really excited about the opportunity and the promise, I think, of unlocking technologies and different ways of collecting people's skills and experiences and demonstrating that they're able to do the work, and then also building those jobs of the future by bringing those skills together and determining what that job title may be for the future.
That was comprehensive. Thank you. Hector, Suzanne, do you guys want to add anything to that or no?
I think right on target, Kristina. And in our school district, we work a lot with a local nonprofit to do exactly what you're describing with stacking credentials for students. In our state, students are required to have what is called a college and career readiness indicator for graduation. And so through this local nonprofit, we are helping some of our students earn that credential. It's really an interesting model. It's a pay to learn model where students are paid $10 an hour to earn certain credentials, whether it be in healthcare, phlebotomy, Google IT, whatever. But again, that is beneficial for the students, certainly for their future, but it's also beneficial for our school district because we, are concerned about our college and career readiness indicator rate, which is about 90% right now for students graduating, compared to a 94% graduation rate. So the work, again, with community and this nonprofit has been very substantial in supporting this work for our school district.
And maybe the only thing that I would build on that, again, to highlight the urgency behind learning and employment records, is this is a critical tool, particularly as we're thinking about those individuals for whom a 4-year university degree, bachelor's degree, or a 2-year community college degree is not the right solution. And that's a real challenge when you realize that almost 2/3 of Americans don't have a 4-year bachelor's degree, which creates a real social divide. And unless we are proactive and intentional at changing that, the jobs of tomorrow are going to be farther and farther out of reach for a lot of people. And this also has racial implications, right? That requiring degrees disproportionately excludes certain communities, both racially and geographically. 70% of rural workers like a college degree, 70% of African-American workers, 80% of Latino workers. So again, there's a lot of momentum happening and really good energy, and like we're investing a lot of money at google.org behind things like credentials and apprenticeships and alternative meaningful pathways to both gain skills, highlight and build upon existing skills, and gain meaningful pathways to employment and mobility. That effort is hindered by the fact that we don't have a vehicle to capture and encapsulate what are the skill sets that are being gained, and how do we communicate those skill sets effectively to employers that are used to just looking at a credential, a transcript from a university as a signal, as a risk mitigation signal to say, hey, this individual was capable of, completing X number of credit hours. But folks for whom that pathway is not an option, which again, it's a majority of Americans, we don't have something comparable and equitable to kind of track and record those learnings and those skill sets. So again, I think it's a space that's nascent, underinvested, but I'm really, really happy that folks like JFF and some of our corporate funder peers like Walmart.org have been really leading the charge around the space.
Hector, thank you. First of all, we've enjoyed the same conversation. In fact, Walmart, we work with Walmart a lot around this idea of the learner employment record, but the idea of honoring more than what we know of the traditional learning and having a vessel to actually demonstrate that, I think is an important part of the conversation. So before I turn it over to Ray, I do have one last quick question, but one plug to this conversation. So you may have heard of the Vital Prize that was just launched by the National Science Foundation recently, in which we are managing a digital promise, which brings on funders like Schmidt Futures and the Gates Foundation. The idea of calling all technologists and education leaders, let's generate more tools and solutions for what we know is needed. One last quick question for you, all three of you, before I turn over to Ray, is so what does success look like? If we do the kind of transformation we see in grocery shopping, we see in dating, that we see in aviation, if it comes to education, I know, Suzanne, how do you see it in your district? What does success look like?
Well, I am proud to say that before we started this digital transformation, we were graduating around 70% of our students, and that was totally unacceptable. 15 years later, we're graduating almost 94% of our students from high school, and we have 7 high schools in rural Talladega County. So I think that demonstrates the power of learning that has happened in our district as a result of changing teaching and learning through the utilization of technology to support student learning. Learning is more robust. It's more interesting. Students are more motivated. There's higher student engagement. I could write a whole dissertation about this. In fact, my colleague did. And it really just showcases how coming together as a team at the table, including our teachers, most importantly, to talk about and identify, looking at data that was not very good back 15 years ago, coming up with a robust plan and infrastructure that all 17 schools can be a part of and impact every student in this district. Today, we are, I think, a great example of how technology in a high poverty rural district can truly transform learning.
Thank you. Hector, Kristina? Go for it, Kristina.
Go ahead, Kristina.
All right, perfect. Success looks like, Hector, you mentioned CodePath and Michael Ellison. Success to me looks like what Michael Ellison is doing to rebuke that stat that 80% of underrepresented minorities drop out of computer science. Success to me looks like Dr. Morris at Morehouse University standing up, the metaverse at Morehouse and putting 600 students in headsets that otherwise would not have had access to headsets and had this experience, and then going on to teach more VR courses than anyone in the world. Success looks like students earning a high school diploma and an industry recognized associate degree, as we're seeing in the P-Tech program. Success looks like a pipeline for K through Gray, and we're seeing organizations like EbFarm in Birmingham and Propel Center that's in Atlanta really look at that. Success looks like the work of Platform for Social Impact in Puerto Rico, who are looking at a multi-generational school and program and platform that includes policy and reform to ensure that individuals that are living in this climate, disadvantaged area actually continue to have ownership in the land as well as ownership in their careers. And so success looks like innovation being funded, unlocked, and making sure that we're all able to truly reach economic advancement in the ways that we deem.
And I'll close this out. First of all, I love that K through gray terminology. I'm gonna steal that from you, Kristina. But I think for us at Google, really centering our focus on three things: technology, training, and hiring. When it comes to technology, we really want to make sure that both the training and the tools that can help people develop skills are accessible, and so are the jobs. At the end of the day, we made our money as a company, as a search engine, and it's no surprise that 50% of job searches start on Google. That's why we've created tools like Google Job Search, and where we continue to invest in making sure that people who are starting their job journey on Google are going to be pointed in the right direction. And that's, of course, going to be augmented as we incorporate emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning into the equation. So that's an exciting component, first of all, around technology. Two, around training. We want to make sure that we're bringing skills and training programs to more people across the country. That's why we've been working closely with our friends at Grow with Google on things like the Google Career Certificates. That's why we launched through google.org our $100 million Google Career Certificate Fund in conjunction with social finance to really center and continue to generate more sustainable models of upskilling, reskilling, and delivering meaningful pathways to the digital economy for underserved communities. And lastly, the piece around hiring, which I really want to underline. We really want to make sure that we are forging partnerships that broaden equity and opportunity in hiring. In the US, we've started building that. Look for us at Google. That looks like building and training more apprentices across the country, leveraging things like the career certificates, but really taking in a pipeline of hundreds and hundreds of apprentices to generate additional pathways into jobs at Google. That also looks like reanalyzing and rejigging what are the signals of merit and likelihood to succeed at Google. So doing away with degree requirements as an initial screen, as an initial filter for potential jobs at places like Google, and also calling on our peers, on other corporate employers, on small and medium-sized employers to also adopt alternative means to assess worthiness and fit. Lastly, making it easier to access the digital economy is really going to require much more than just Google, Google.org, JFF, and public schools and public education systems. It's going to require effort from government, nonprofits, private sector. So really, really encouraged to have this conversation and continue to rethink what it means to be qualified for work.
Thank you all. Ray, over to you.
I know I'm listening and I feel like we should keep going, but I do want to get to some of the audience questions.
Don't worry, I got 7 more questions. But
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. And I apologize in advance, folks in the audience who are asking questions. I'm not going to get to them all. I'm going to try to combine a few of them to get through a couple here. And Kristina, K through Gray is going to be the name of my professional autobiography. I'm taking it now, so no one else can take it. First question I've got here. With the mental health challenges facing today's students and knowing that social media, so technology in some ways has exacerbated these issues, where do we see technologies integrating with social emotional supports to help students remain focused and manage stress in school and outside of it? So tech is the solution, not part of the problem. Who wants to go?
I'll actually go. I feel like I shared a lot about my family today, but I'll share this one too. And I appreciate whoever asked that question. My daughter is a sophomore in high school and was just diagnosed ADHD. And so we had a lot of conversation around just her learning style and modalities that she needs. And so there are a couple of things I think. One is teaching. I think our kids today, our students today, have a lot more coming at them than we ever did, or other generations ever did. And I think one is teaching balance and opportunity to take a step back, to understand their learning styles, and to ask for the supports that they need, for schools to actually have the resources to teach all modalities of learning. There's some people and some students who are auditory. And so how might we have tools and platforms that provide that? Some are visual, some may need to move around while they're learning. And so I think making sure that schools are resourced to provide that. I think the other is around true mental health and having, demystifying counseling, demystifying the need to talk through and get extra help in certain areas. I'll say with VR, there is a meditation app. I think one thing with VR, those who can use the headsets, I know there's some students and individuals who may have movement issues and it doesn't work for them, but there are ways to teach kids how to deal with certain situations, whether that's how to calm themselves. If there's a fear of bugs or dogs, like I mentioned to people earlier, there's actually VR tools that can help. And so I think finding ways where these platforms and tools can support and be provided for schools and students and families that actually need it, I think then we'll start seeing social emotional learning integrated with regular curriculum and learning.
Any other takers on that one, or I can move to another question?
Yeah, I don't know if I can participate in this, but I mean, to Kristina's point, I mean, I'm also seeing EdTech products being developed to do things like mindfulness with young people, at times as a way of a check-in with an adult, for example, so you can get a view of a classroom or a school very quickly. And to target resources to particular places. In school, my own kid's school, they have a daily check-in, and to an app, you can quickly engage what is happening. But I'm seeing more and more stuff coming into the market. But to Kristina's point, it being integrated into the fabric of a school, in the fabric of curriculum pedagogy, I think is an important part of this conversation.
Great, thank you. And this is for all of you. So JC, you're going to be on this one as well. What are you most excited about, most optimistic about, something new or surprising related to education and technology in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think I'm just most excited and thrilled about how technology is supporting students through what we call career technical pathways in our state and our district. For example, we have students that are building tiny houses as part of their curriculum in building construction. And of course, it's a lot technology based through the drafting and the different programs where students are designing the tiny house, but it also meets the workforce development need in our region and our state as far as the important skills that students are learning while they're building the tiny house, plumbing, electrical, things of that nature that are real world skills. And students coming out of that program, some are going straight to work to 2-year programs or 4-year colleges, moving into more engineering and building science. So those types of offerings for our students, to me, not only through building construction, but other career tech pathways like healthcare, are really providing that opportunity for students to experience what this career is truly going to be if they decide to move forward as their career pathway after graduation.
Hector, you want to go first, and I'll round this out. Or Kristina?
Yeah, I think one thing that I've been kind of harping on this throughout the course of this conversation, but it's really because I think it's differential and it's important, which is this movement to rethink and almost renegotiate with our society, with ourselves, what it means to be qualified for work, what it means to have the right skill sets for a job, and that reassessment of worthiness, of risk mitigation, of qualification for employment. I think it's going to be truly differential, and how we can be more inclusive and have a broader pipeline of talent that can help us build the emerging technologies of today and tomorrow.
I can be really quick on this one. One, I'm really excited about all of our portfolio companies at JFF Ventures and what they're bringing to the table around upskilling, reskilling, and wraparound. But one of the things I talked about today was just the verifiable credentials wallet and what that will look like in the future for blended learning from many sources, providers, and experience. I'm really excited about what that can do for talent that has been overlooked because their resumes don't have everything that they need, but their life experiences do, and just being able to narrate that, and just the opportunity for lifelong learning, ways of educating and getting people excited about skills, particularly as technology is going to rapidly change over the next couple of decades.
And I'll be really, really quick too. So there's a lot I'm seeing that will revolutionize curriculum development and pedagogical practice, like for example, in mathematics. We're already seeing it, frankly, in the writing. But two, I'll double down on. One is the power of AI to really reinvent what we do in schools, including things like early warning systems, which can be really automated, again, putting the human in the center. But the one I'm most excited about is the learner record, the learner employment record, as a Trojan horse to bring on competency-based education finally across the board in education, as a way of honoring all learning and as a way of giving agency and ownership to the individual, not the institutions. I think it's a powerful construct there that frankly is a massive Trojan horse of changing and elevating so much we've been struggling with in education.
On that note, I think that's going to bring us to a close. I learned a lot today. I know everyone else did in the audience. I can see in the chat. Wonderful to have all of you with us. Thank you so much to everyone, Hector, Dr. Lacey, Kristina, Jean-Claude. It's been an absolute pleasure. And let's have this be the beginning of the conversation, not the end. So let's all stay connected and continue on. That means you all in the chat and at home as well. Thank you, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.